on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live in the Mappable USA studios in Las Vegas. And folks, we're on a roll with these opportunity zones. We're talking about all different kinds of information. We're bringing investors. We are bringing developers. We're bringing fund managers, especially on today's show. So before we get moving in that direction, we got to introduce Vicki Hutchmala from the QOZ Marketplace. Vicki, how are you today?
Outstandingly wonderful, Ron. Having a great day so far, and I'm looking forward to this podcast because we generally talk about opportunity zones and projects at an urban, in the city kind of perspective, and today we are going to be talking to people who are doing agricultural opportunity zones, which I am looking forward to.
Well, let's introduce our guest today. We have from Harvest Returns, we have Chris Rawley, he's the founder CEO, and we have Austin Maness, he's the COO of that company. Guys, how are you today?
We're doing great, Ron, Vicki. Thanks for having us on.
Hey, appreciate you having us.
Oh,
our pleasure.
Absolutely. Where are you guys located?
We're in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, okay, very nice. That's good. So you guys have been involved in obviously in opportunities. So first of all, before we get started, tell us about your background and how you kind of got involved in this in the first place.
Sure. So Austin and I, we've known each other for a long time, friend of the family, and we've done some prior work together. We both come from a military background. I grew up sort of a city boy in the suburbs, didn't really have much of a farming background. Went into the Navy, traveled all over the world, started to gain an appreciation for food and how it was produced that I really didn't have as a young boy eating TV dinners in the suburbs. And also a long-time real estate investor. Been doing that for about 20 years. And after a while, I started looking at various ways to expand my investments outside of residential and commercial, and started learning more about agriculture based on my travels, and decided I wanted to invest in a farm, and found out, well, that's pretty hard to do. There's a lot of capital that's required to purchase the land and the infrastructure, and you've got to know what you're doing, and I really didn't have either of those. So at the same time, this was in 2016, we saw that there were a lot more people investing in real estate via platforms, online platforms, and private placements. So we decided to combine those two ideas. And I'll let Austin tell you a little bit about his background, and then where we are with the company today.
Yeah, so I definitely had the more country boy background. Spent a lot of summers with my grandparents, aunts, and uncles in the southeast United States. Working on their farms, helping them whenever I wasn't in school, and so. Like Chris, went into the military and saw a lot of the world, saw some harsh places and some nice places, but no matter where it was, they were definitely dependent on agriculture for a food source and housing materials and clothing and what have you. So as I finished up my military career and wanted to get into something that was kind of serving a group of people, this idea that Chris presented was that way, and so I definitely wanted to get involved and figure out how we can help farmers and ranchers get access to capital, and then also how we can help investors get access to quality deals that they probably couldn't afford normally, but would with our platform.
Yeah, that's what crowdfunding is all about. That's what makes it so great. We see a lot of these online platforms that are there to get allow investors to invest in these kind of projects. But now specifically with the opportunity zones, did you guys even kind of look into that when you first started? It's probably not, right? The opportunity zones are so new, but now you guys have created your own fund, I believe, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, no, we started in 2016. We started talking to farmers all over the country, and the platform's been up and running for a couple of years, and we funded deals, and we speak to farmers every day and get their deals on the platform so people can invest in them. And once we heard about a year ago about the Opportunity Zone Fund legislation, we thought, well, there's 8,700 opportunity zones, and we started looking around where they were, and come to find out that many of the farmers that we were speaking to happen to be in opportunity zones, their ranches and farms, even if they didn't realize it. And it turns out there's 8,700 or so opportunity zone designated areas, and about 40% of them are in rural areas. So worked out to be a perfect matchup for us. And we just launched our Sustainable Agriculture Opportunity Zone Fund. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of funds out there, there is only single digits focused on agriculture, and our Sustainable Agriculture Opportunity Zone Fund is one of those. And we're looking at projects, everything from grass-fed cattle to organic indoor hydroponic greenhouses to cage-free egg operations, you name it. We've got some deal flow that reflects it. And so we're in the process of raising capital, and we'll be making our investments in these specific farm projects here in the next several months.
Are you finding that farmers and ranchers are interested or a little bit leery about the opportunity zone concept?
I would say that farmers and ranchers are interested in getting capital, and that's why they're coming to us. And, like Chris said, the opportunity zone legislation fits our model very well. It's once we read into this, we felt like they wrote this legislation for our exact business model. So farmers are already coming to us wanting that capital. They are getting more and more educated about that, what the opportunity zone will do for the investor side, and so that makes their particular operation a little more attractive when you include all those tax benefits. And so right now it's really about the education side of it. We are helping farmers and ranchers from all over the country understand that, hey, you've got a good deal. Let us work with you to get you that capital that you need to upgrade your operation or expand. And so they're pretty happy to hear that there's going to be some more capital.
Well, that's the reason we do the podcast. Ron and I have found that no matter how great the opportunity is, if people don't know anything about it, they can't take advantage of it. So education is key. How do you outreach to ranchers and farmers or to people in rural areas for whatever your project might be?
Sure. So the farmers, they really come to us. If you kind of look at what the agriculture finance system hasn't changed a lot in 50 or so years. We talk to farmers and third, fourth generation farmers and ranchers, and the loans available are pretty much the same as they were for their fathers and grandfathers. And what we're finding out is that the agriculture finance system is optimized and subsidized, specifically by USDA for farmers who are growing row crops in a conventional manner. So we're talking wheat and soybeans and corn and crops like that. If you're doing something that's a little different than that, then it's more challenging to get capital. And at the same time, agriculture credit system has tightened a little bit because of low commodity prices. So it's harder for even those farmers to get bank loans, and they're hungry for funding, alternative sources of funding that are nimble and flexible, and that's what we provide our farmers, and that's how they find us. They just look on the internet and say, I'm looking for capital, and we tend to come up pretty high in the search results.
Well, and I would think that a younger generation is more open to alternative fund sourcing than grandparents and parents who do things the same way as everybody did before them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Well,
so now you guys, with the fund that you set up, though, this is you guys aren't broker dealers, are you?
Correct. We are not broker dealers.
Right. Okay. So when somebody invests in the fund, this fund sounds like it's set up for a business perspective rather than like a straight real estate play. Is that right? Do you guys have a real estate component here where you're buying land as well, or is it just really just to help out the businesses, the farmers involved?
Yeah, this is definitely a business play. When you look at those two different avenues to go down between property and business, based on the nature of these agribusinesses and how they operate and what their cash flow is like, the assets that they're using, that it made more sense for our fund to go that route than just the strict property play like some of the other, kind of real estate funds are doing.
How long have you had your Opportunity Zone Fund operational?
We just launched a couple of weeks ago, so that was in July. And we'll be raising
congratulations.
Capital. Yeah, thanks. And we're going to be raising capital through the end of the year.
Excellent.
Well, and before this, as far as a farmer's perspective, if they want to upgrade their equipment or if they want to do something, they need money for their businesses, they were really just forced to go traditional financing at that point, which is really hard for them. So I would imagine that this is something that a lot of these guys, once they find out about, your phone's probably ringing off the hook with you. There's a lot of farmers out there, a lot of people who need money, for sure. I think you might be in the right spot on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Once they kind of talk through the process with us and we share kind of what this means as far as, what is their cost to raise capital, when they're going through the traditional debt financing, there's a lot of risk on the farmer. He's got to have his assets up for collateral. And so, a young guy or gal that's out there trying to get their start in this may not have the assets, or even if they're an older generation, may not want to put those assets at risk. And so when you bring in equity investors, and this again going back to the education pieces, we're sharing with a farmer that, hey, you're sharing the load of that risk with the investors, bringing them on, especially with passive investors. They're not going to be in your hair. They're not going to be taking over your farm. Basically, they're just coming along for the ride, and they want to be a part of the journey that the farmer is going through, and just kind of have that connection to their food source or something like that. So once farmers kind of understand that and feel more comfortable with it, they are very much into it.
Well, we did a podcast or had a conversation with Sheldon Mudd. He is trying to develop the rural areas in northern Nevada, trying to put together a shrimp farm to supply shrimp to Las Vegas, to Boise, and to Salt Lake. And he's having a difficulty trying to bring together investors. So I think you guys might have the secret formula.
We'd love to talk to him.
Well, we'll connect you for sure.
Yeah, and along those lines too, I'm sure a lot of farmers and ranchers, et cetera, will contact you guys, and Chris or Austin. You obviously can't say yes to every project, right? So what are some of the things that you look for in something that says, yeah, this is an investable project. Our fund's going to invest in this deal?
Sure. So our projects, just like any sort of investment deal, say a commercial real estate deal, what you're looking at a few things. One, you're looking at the sponsor's track record and the sponsor's ability to execute the project and make those pro forma numbers as they predict or say they can do. So we're looking at the sponsor and the team the sponsor puts together. So not only do we need people that have the agriculture, agronomy skills, they may be multi-generational farmers, or they got the education, or they got a great, solid farm team. We need people that are business savvy. So sometimes we have farmers approach us and they've got good ideas, and we kind of work through the numbers, and they just don't work out from an investment standpoint. And we hate to turn people away, but you have to, because we're in the business of making money for our investors and funding the farmers. It's a two-sided equation. And then we're also looking at all the tangibles about the particular offering, which that depends on what are they growing, how are they growing it, what's the commodity, is it influenced by commodity prices, or is it more of a specialty type of crop, a higher end crop? Like, for example, we did a grass-fed cattle operation, and grass-fed cattle bring higher premiums in some cases than grain-fed cattle, and it's a lower volatile sort of commodity, so there's a little bit less risk for the investor potentially. And so and there's also a sustainability aspect. We like our offerings to have something that makes an impact, whether you're supporting a rural area and bringing jobs to a rural area. For example, we did a deal in Kentucky where a factory had been closed down a few years back, and our greenhouse operation we helped fund, we're just going to bring 75 new jobs to this small town. So those sorts of things, environmental benefits are important to some investors, but we want to, bottom line is we want to make sure that the investment does what the sponsor says the investment will do.
So do the farmers or the ranchers even, when they come to you, do they want to continue what they've been doing and want you to help them raise funds so they can continue whatever crops or production they've been doing? Or do they come to you for new ideas and say, well, I have 500 acres and maybe I want to do a solar farm instead of grow corn?
Yeah, so the easy answer is all the above. So for sure there are farmers that are just looking to expand their existing operation. They need to get to a scale to kind of increase their business, increase their way of life, what have you. Other farmers are seeking out new opportunities. An example, like Chris mentioned earlier, like our bamboo offering that we have, it's a young man that, wanted to get into agriculture, saw an opportunity with a crop that is like a huge percentage of this crop is imported into the United States. And so what if that crop was available here domestically? And so he partnered with a company that sells it and is growing. He's already started his track record, and now he's doing a raise with us for his next phase. So there's farmers looking for those new opportunities. And then there's always changing consumer preferences. And so when you talk to folks and like, I want a grass-fed organic cheeseburger and I want it at a low cost, farmers and ranchers have to update their processes to produce what the customer is asking for, what the consumer is looking for. So sometimes, it's updating the process, and that's very, very capital intensive, and that's why they're out there hunting for that money.
Well, yeah, that's a whole side of I don't know, humanity or what, that people tend to forget, that take it for granted, that you just go to the store and you buy the food and you eat it and you forget where it came from, and that's a whole viable business out there, and they need help as much as somebody wants to build new multi-family residential areas in the city. It's just as important and probably more important.
Yeah, that's what we agree with that for sure.
And what about these newest things with like hemp and cannabis? And I mean, you seeing any of that stuff in opportunity zones, or what? Any of your business plans?
We do. As a matter of fact, we have some hemp opportunities that we are considering for inclusion in our Opportunity Zone Fund. We also actually have a live offering on our platform of a hemp CBD oil conversion facility. And CBD oil, if you've ever heard of that, people are using, and this is not marijuana, it is cannabis based, but it's legal now because of the 2018 Farm Bill all over the country. But that CBD oil, people are giving it to their dogs to reduce anxiety. People are putting it on their arthritis. People are, they're saying it's got a lot of good medicinal properties, and that
it's a booming market for sure.
Yeah, and so the hemp market, a lot of farmers are interested in that because of the returns it can bring. People are making clothes out of hemp, the CBD oil, all kinds of products. So we've got an offering right now on our platform that's a 506c offering for accredited investors to invest in that market that's really rapidly expanding.
We just talked to some folks about blockchain and cryptocurrency. How do you think that fits into what you're doing in terms of raising funds?
We have looked at that industry. We've looked at the technologies and spoken to a few providers of blockchain and securitized tokens. And I think at some point the industry, the investment in the crowdfunding industry will move more and more into those fields. But for now, I think the technology is a little bit immature, and just the acceptance of it. People have to, to invest in something like that, you've got to have a crypto wallet. You've got to have all these sort of know-how, and it's a lot. I think the younger generations are really going to embrace it, but most of the investors we talk to are just not quite there yet.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with, goes back to education. It's something new, and anything that's new, people tend to be a little bit afraid of it. But once you understand it and once you see how viable it is, you will embrace it easily and wonder why you didn't do it sooner.
Absolutely, and just about any market, that's the case. And so as we provide the highest quality offerings to our investors, there's some risk analysis there too, and as Treasury laws and rules continue to evolve, we're definitely keeping a close eye on that, so that as that risk profile for those types of currencies becomes into a satisfactory level, we for sure will give it even more attention.
Yeah, we deal with a a lot of commercial guys here in Vegas, and it's amazing how many people who are in the commercial real estate business really don't even know what opportunity zones are at this point. So I would imagine that number should be lower with farmers and people in that market. So how many people contact you with the express idea like, hey, I own opportunity zone real estate? Or is it more like they just contact you and you say, hey, you know what? You own a farm in an opportunity zone. Did you know that? And they'll say no, right? Or is that what do you see that happening?
Yeah, so we once we started looking specifically for opportunities in opportunity zones or for projects in opportunity zones, we put a little check on our box to get that information from these farmers. And I think maybe a couple of them we talked to didn't know they were in opportunity zones. Many of them had heard of it. And we asked them all, regardless if they are or they aren't. But we've spoken to more than 40 farmers who are in opportunity zones who are looking to raise capital. So of that 40, we will likely invest in a much smaller number, probably 4 or 5 of those. We're kind of in the early stages of due diligence on which projects we want to include in the fund. But it shows, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we haven't spoken to, but we know that there is a pretty significant interest out there from farmers. And in some cases, if you're, it's just like a real estate play. Actually, I'd say it's more flexible, because if you're going to put like a hydroponics greenhouse in an opportunity zone or on a parcel of land across the street that's not an opportunity zone, that's an easy selection. And it's a lot harder in an urban area, because there's obviously you're dealing with more permitting and more land and more congestion and prices being driven up. That's one of the things I'm sure your listeners who are familiar with opportunity zones have heard about. In a lot of these urban areas, there's been kind of a land grab for opportunity zone land, and it's driven up prices. We haven't seen the same thing in rural areas, because there's, it's just the land is not as liquid, so there's not as much of a land grab. So we think that that's one of the benefits of investing in our fund versus, say, a commercial real estate for focused opportunity zone fund, is you've got that opportunity for higher appreciation in the land itself.
Well, I think it's mindset too, because if you think of folks who live in the city, have a certain mindset for how to go to work and what to do and how to spend your day, but it's a whole different mindset out in the country where agricultural or ranching areas are, because it's a different mindset and you approach it in a different way. So I can see where more land is available for agricultural and ranching and because of the mindset. So what do you do when people approach you who have a ranch? How do you help them?
So I guess you're asking like for livestock or something like that?
Well, what I guess, is it specific to cattle or sheep or even an egg farm, something like that?
Sure. We've talked with folks that have, a grass-fed cattle operation, that have a ranch somewhere and they're looking to expand or increase their herd size. We've talked with sheep folks and goat farmers. Occasionally been approached by folks that are into some very exotic things, llamas and alpacas and things like that. So it really comes down to, what the end product is. Is it food source, a source of wool or something like that. But yeah, we have conversations with all types of ranchers.
Interesting.
And you guys over at the Harvest Returns, even though we're talking about opportunity zone funds, you will look at projects that are not in opportunity zones as well then, right? I mean, you're not strictly opportunity zone based at this point.
Right. That's our bread and butter business. That's what we've been doing since we started, direct investments into specific agriculture projects.
Excellent. Well, it seems like you guys have been very successful at that. And, coming from someone like myself who's experience in agriculture is watching green acres as a kid, right? That's it. But
yeah. I tell people, Ron, you've seen because I used to be in commercial real estate and I've invested a lot. I say, you've seen one sort of multifamily deal. You've seen them all. They're for the most part fairly simple. And when I got into this business and we talked to everything from like the alpaca farmers to the olive orchards. It's like you've seen one farm. They're very unique, and there's I think that's an opportunity for us because there's such a variety in the field, and it also is an opportunity for investors because each of these projects has a certain risk return sort of profile that it's not necessarily one size fits all. There's a lot of room for people to invest in what they feel passionate about investing in and to meet their specific investment criteria.
Well, I guess
is there any part in the country that you like projects in particular, any area, state, et cetera, or do you look at anything?
Yeah, we look at any opportunity, and as part of my role as a COO is sometimes to go and visit some of these locations, and as we're going through our due diligence process on them. So yeah, sure, I love the nicer weather kind of areas or the easier terrain, but I love to go visit them all anywhere in the United States. And so it's that's just an added bonus when you're coming into an asset that's an agricultural asset. There are people that love to leave the city limits and go and visit their investment. And, like Chris said, if you want to go visit another apartment building that you invested in, it's probably just like all the other apartment buildings. But when you go visit an olive orchard in Central Texas or a hemp operation in Denver, Colorado, you're getting out there and seeing the world, that you wouldn't see in downtown wherever you live. So just, we love every part of the country and love to get our feet on the ground out there.
Yeah, I would think that one of the benefits to an agricultural, you can build a multifamily residence, but it's always going to be a multifamily residence. You can paint it, you can, remodel it, but it's always multifamily. But in agriculture, you can have grow corn this year and then 2 or 3 years down the road say, oh, well, maybe that's not going to work, so let's turn it into a pig farm, or let's make it a solar farm, or the possibilities are endless, and that's, I think, is a little more exciting.
Yeah, we like to say there's optionality in these operations. That's also why we really like indoor agriculture like hydroponics, because the farmers there can change their crops and change them pretty rapidly based on what the market conditions demand and time of year and seasonality and all those things. Plus, you can grow year-round where you can't do that necessarily outside. So we really enjoy talking to and helping farmers that are setting up these new greenhouses all over the country.
Oh, yeah. So do you work very much with tribal lands or reservation land?
That's funny that you asked that. We actually have not yet, but we're speaking to some of those farmers, and we're interested in getting more of them to help more Native American farmers, get their farms funded.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, because I think they're a population that kind of gets forgotten sometimes, but they have a lot of potential, and they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, of course, what their access to the land is, and then, the regulatory stuff surrounding their land, is something you got to pay attention to just because of, the federal laws and then what kind of laws they have on their own areas.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, that does set up a roadblock, perhaps.
Yeah, so guys, listen, if someone's listening to this podcast right now, they may be interested and want more information on what you're doing or more information about the fund. What's the best way to get in contact with you guys? You guys have a phone number, website, email? What do you think is the best way?
We have all the above plus social media, but harvestreturns.com is the place to start. There's a drop down on there, and you can learn about our Sustainable Agriculture Opportunity Zone Fund. You can register from a platform and invest the entire process, soup to nuts, from going through the offering documents to transferring your money to following the deal as it progresses and receiving your distributions and K-1 tax documents, all those things. harvestreturns.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those.
Yeah, you got to be on social media these days. It's everywhere. Vicki, do you have any final questions or thoughts about this? This sounds pretty interesting as well. And, it's right around lunchtime here in Vegas, so this is a good segue for us.
Well, all I would say is congratulations on working with a different point of view in agriculture. And I guess if you get down to the basics, where hunter-gatherers, and we're no matter how much technology happens and how much we evolve, we're still hunter-gatherers, and we still need food, and we still need clothes. And congratulations to you guys for being in that area of opportunity zones.
Well, thanks, Vicki. We appreciate that.
Thanks so much.
Yep, Chris Rawley and Austin Maness from Harvest Returns. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Like I said, you guys are very, very busy, I'm sure. You took the time out to speak with our audience today, and it's much, much appreciated. I really, really thank you for being on the show.
Excellent podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Vicki, thanks again for co-hosting. Everybody out there, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast at mappableiusa.com, where we put you on the map. Go to our website, scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. You can pick the one you like best so that you never miss another episode. And if you want to be a guest on the show today, like Chris and Austin were, there's a guest tab there. You just click on the tab. We'll see about getting you on the show as well. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for keeping us popular out there. And we'll be at you next week with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.